Last week, I was on retreat with our seminarians and several young men who are currently thinking about the priesthood. As part of our discussions, we watched a video documentary about a young man from Texas and his journey to the priesthood. I want to share with you the story of Father Ryan Staways. Ryan grew up in a very normal Catholic family, and he went to college wishing to be a petroleum engineer. It was there, though, that he discovered he had a rare form of cancer. However, Ryan kept his spirit up. He was very athletic. He kept playing sports. He went through treatment. He beat the cancer, and then he continued on his journey. And in the midst of this, he felt this tug from God. He felt a call that God was inviting him to consider the priesthood. So Ryan answered that call. He entered the seminary and very enthusiastically prepared himself to become a priest. Time went on, but then just weeks before he was going to be ordained as a priest, he received news that seemingly made no sense. 9 years after he beat cancer the first time, it came back. And this time, it came back more aggressively than the first. You can imagine the questions that were going through Ryan's mind at that time. Will they even ordain me as a priest? Am I a liability to the church now? There were even deeper questions than just becoming a priest, such as, God, are you even listening? Did I hear you wrong when you called me to be a priest? I said yes to you. I've been following you with my whole heart. And why is this happening right now? Of course, those aren't just Father Ryan's questions. You and I also have similar questions that are going through our mind all the time. Why the cancer? Why the family troubles? Why the power outages? Are you even listening, Lord? Is what I'm doing the right thing that I'm supposed to be doing? This film takes us through Father Ryan's ordination to the priesthood and his heroic battle with cancer and the perseverance, the patience, and the peacefulness that was demanded of him through it all. Because what makes Father Ryan's experience unique is this. His prayer became not just to accept the will of God, but to love the will of God, which is the title of the film, Love God's Will. Because it's one thing to say, I will accept the will of God even though I don't understand it. It's another thing to say, I'm going to try to love God's will, even if I really don't like it. I'm going to love it because God wills it for me. That, friends, is the way to conquer the heart of God. And that's what happens today, full display in the gospel. Because you see, this Canaanite woman is an outsider. She shows up to Jesus outside of the sphere of those who are privileged to ask the Lord for any type of favor. She is coming from a pagan people. Jesus is coming from the Jewish perspective. They are God's chosen race, and therefore should have nothing to do with the pagans, as was thought at the time. But the woman is undeterred. She says, have pity on me, Lord, Son of David. And Jesus doesn't say a word to her. That's already the first rejection. Then Jesus' disciples say, get her out of here, Jesus. She's not one of us. Just send her away. And to make it worse, Jesus backs it up. He says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. In other words, I was only sent to my fellow Jews. The woman persists, Lord, help me. And Jesus gives an even bigger insult. It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs. Requests of me should be from the children of God, fellow Jews, and not from you dogs, you pagans, you outsiders. Throughout all of this, it seems like Jesus is being crass, and he may be. But he's not doing it in order to get the woman away from him. No, Jesus sometimes comes down hard on people in order to invite them in order to draw out from them their true desire, in order to invite their persistence and their patience and their perseverance. You and I, we treat God like a gumball machine so often. I stick in the corner, I turn it, and out comes a gumball. All right, see you later, God. I'll come back when I'm ready for the next one. God doesn't work that way. God is a person, and you enter into a relationship with a person, which means they don't give you what you ask right away. They invite you in, they draw in that needed relationship. And Jesus is drawing in this woman, drawing out her faith from her. And she says something remarkable that will get an answer. After Jesus says it's not right to take the food from the children and throw it to you dogs, she says this, "Please, Lord, even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the master's table." I know my status. I know that I'm lowly. I know that I'm an outsider. But I'm going to keep asking because I can trust that I at least will get the scraps. This woman is quite persevering. She grows not only to accept the will of God, but even to love it, and keeps pushing it, keeps asking Jesus in prayer. And in doing so, she conquers the heart of Jesus, and Jesus responds, "How great is your faith? Never seen anything like it. Your daughter is going to be healed." What kind of setbacks have you gone through or are currently going through that are testing your perseverance, that are trying your patience, and that are deflating your peacefulness? Where are you asking something from God where it seems that He's just not listening, or even worse, He's just laughing at you? Where does God allow your pride and expectation to just be deflated? On this same retreat last week, we seminarians and priests were out of town in a relatively large city. And another priest and I went out early in the morning to get coffee for everybody. We stopped at a local coffee shop located near this big hospital complex. We were standing in the shop waiting for our order, dressed in our blacks as priests. 6:30 a.m. Of course, nobody wants to talk to people at that time, right? We're minding our own business, and then in walks a gentleman dressed in scrubs. Presumably he was a doctor or some other medical professional. Right away, the man began to berate us and started saying or repeating over and over again, "Keep abortion legal, keep your politics out of other people's lives, keep your religion out of my hospital." And the vitriol just kept coming out and spewing out because of what we were wearing. And it took every ounce of me to resist the temptation to return in kind, to spew out that same type of venom that he was dishing out to us. And in that moment, I realized something in me had to die. The pride to need to be treated with respect, the desire to just dish it right back, the temptation to control the situation so that I don't feel that I'm beaten. God was letting my patience be tested, my pride be deflated, and the need to simply trust in Him for the next step. Now, that was just a small way. That experience was nothing like what Father Ryan had to deal with in his experience with cancer, or like many of your experiences who have struggled with a long-term illness, or relationship trauma, or you've experienced a major loss, your financial instability, or this past week, lots of you have maybe lost a lot, suffered damage to your homes and your property. All of you, all of us, have had our patience tested some way or another. But when you continue to ask with a prayer in your heart that does not just grow to accept God's will, but to love God's will, then you can conquer the heart of God. Like this Canaanite woman who doesn't let herself be deterred, but grows in that patience to simply ask God for the help that she needs. You can conquer the heart of the Lord. Back to Father Ryan. Father Ryan was ordained a priest and served for 2 years in a parish where his health continued to decline. He began losing his strength, his hair turned white. He even had to stop celebrating Mass, and the last thing that he could do in the parish was drag his oxygen tank into the confessional, where long lines of people were anxious to be able to go to confession to him. All the while, he kept a smile glowing on his face and the presence of God in his heart, because he knew not only to accept the will of God for his life, but he grew to love it, even until his last breath after only 2 years as a priest. As a result, Father Ryan's patience, his perseverance, his peacefulness of heart was an inspiration to everyone around him. What about you? Where is God drawing you closer to him in spite of your setbacks, your worries, your hurts, your rejections, anything that just deflates you? Friends, let's just grow this week not only to accept the will of God for our life, but to love it. And that is how we will conquer the heart of the Lord. Amen.